Okay, welcome everyone to our public meeting this evening for applications we have before us from the tribute surveyor group. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you're not familiar with this room, the washrooms are around the corner that way, along where the elevator is. The emergency exits are the stairs you entered, or it's the back here beside the kitchen. And just want to welcome everybody here to this public meeting. Before I officially start the meeting, just want to kind of give a little background of what this meeting is. So Township has received applications for both an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment, which would enable the development of lands at the north edge of the village of Arthur. It has been applied for. Wellington North is not the decision-making authority for an official plan amendment. That's an authority resides with the county of Wellington. But we're holding a public meeting on their behalf for this official plan amendment as well. And then, of course, the zoning bylaw amendment is the authority that Wellington North has. And so this is a joint meeting. This council is, I guess, not the decision-making authority for official plan, it is for the zoning bylaw. Just for clarification. I've probably forgotten something, but again, welcome everybody, and we have a number of presentations, so stay tuned. I'll officially call the meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest on anything on today's agenda. I have none to declare. Councilor McCabe?
I have none.
Councilor Burke?
I have none.
Councilor Rankin?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. The owner applicant in this case is Tribute Surveyor Arthur Holdings Inc. The location of the subject land, the land subject to proposed zoning amendment and official plan amendment is legally described as part of park lots 1 and 2, north of Macaulay Street, Crown Survey, and park lot 1, concession 2, West Luther, and municipally described as 665 Eliza Street, Arthur. The subject property has a total area of 55.35 hectares, 2 properties. The purpose and effect of the application, the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the lands from future development zone to medium density residential site specific, open space, and natural environment. Site specific relief includes reductions in lot frontage, lot area, side yard setbacks, height, and lot coverage. An official plan amendment has been submitted in support of this development, which proposes to redesignate the lands from future development to residential. Draft plan of subdivision has also been submitted for the development of 815 to 866 dwelling units, including single detached, semi-detached, and street townhouses. The proposal also includes public parks, natural heritage system, stormwater management pond, and lands for municipal infrastructure, including well and pump station. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notice was posted in the Wellington Advertiser, mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the equipment property, as well as to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on December 18, 2025.
Thank you. We'll now move into presentations. We have a number of presentations this evening. We'll start with Curtis Marco from County Wellington Planning. Welcome, Curtis. The floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hello. Okay, perfect. Good evening, Mayor Lennox and members of council. I'm here before you to provide a brief overview of the tribute surveyor applications that are subject of tonight's public meeting.
You're having trouble seeing the screen from the back. There's lots of chairs up front here.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're not throwing anything.
Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Thanks. So there are two properties that are included in the proposed development. The properties are located in the north part of Arthur and are known as part of Lot 1. And over here. There are two properties in Arthur that are subject to the applications. And the first property is known as part of Lot 1, Concession 2, West Luther. And I'm referring to the property in the west side of Eliza Street. That's triangle shaped. And the other property is on the east side of Eliza, and it's known as part of Park Lots 1 and 2, north of Macaulay Street in Arthur, and has a municipal address of 655 Eliza Street. So the properties are approximately 55 hectares, which is approximately 137 acres in size. So the property on the west side of Eliza Street is currently vacant and is being used for crop production. And the property on the east side contains a dwelling and farm buildings, which are proposed to be removed. And this land is also used for crop production. Surrounding land uses include, to the north, agricultural uses and Ivan Armstrong Trucking. To the east, agricultural uses. To the west, also agricultural uses. And to the south, there are some existing industrial uses as well as industrial and future development designated lands. Next. So the property is currently designated as future development and core greenlands in the County of Wellington official plan. Next. The property is currently zoned future development in the Township of Wellington North zoning bylaw. The Wellington North Growth Management Action Plan identifies the properties as future development area. So to discuss the proposal, an official plan amendment, a draft plan of subdivision, and a zoning bylaw amendment applications have been filed with the County of Wellington and the Township of Wellington North for a proposed residential development. The proposed development includes 815 to 866 residential dwellings. And that includes single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwellings. It includes public parks, natural heritage system area, stormwater management ponds, as well as lands for municipal infrastructure, which could include a land for a well and a pump station. Shown on the screen here is a color concept plan which shows the proposed development's layout. So a series of supporting studies have been submitted to the township and county in support of the applications. Now these studies have been circulated to departments and agencies with the applications for review. So I'm not going to go through all of them there, but there's a list. So to talk about the purpose of the official plan amendment is to redesignate the lands from future development to residential and open space. And this is a draft of the applicant's proposed official plan amendment schedule. The proposed draft plan of subdivision includes 454 to 504 single detached dwellings, 112 to 113 semi-detached dwellings, 249 street townhouse dwellings, 3 park blocks, 3 natural heritage blocks, a pump station and servicing blocks, as well as stormwater management blocks. The proposed access to the site would be from Eliza Street and from Macaulay Street. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from future development to medium density residential site specific, natural environment, and open space zones. Site specific zoning is also proposed for a reduced lot area, lot frontages, side and rear yard setbacks, and an increased lot coverage. So the provincial policy statement provides policy directions on matters of provincial interest related to land use planning and development. A summary of the most relevant provincial planning statement policies is provided in the report, and these policies will need to be considered in evaluating the applications. So just to, I should note, now we're talking about Wellington County official plan policies. So a review of the applicable official plan policies is provided in the public meeting report. A few policies worth highlighting include the future development policies, which provide and outline objectives for future development. And the objectives for future development lands are to provide for orderly future development of the unbuilt areas of the urban center. B, to limit development of such lands to current uses until an official plan amendment, including a proper site plan or concept plan for future uses, has been submitted and approved. And C, to prohibit development of these lands until the necessary municipal services can be made available for such areas. So the official plan also provides direction that's also worth noting about when and how future development lands can be redesignated for other uses, such as when there is a need for the land and development, and that the proposed use is compatible and can reasonably and economically serviced. The official plan also provides direction on land use compatibility, indicating that, and I'll just read this out, these two sentences. So major facilities and sensitive land uses shall be planned and developed to avoid, or if avoidance is not possible, minimize and mitigate any potential adverse effects from odor, noise, and other contaminants, minimize the risk to public health and safety, and to ensure the long-term operational and economic viability of major facilities in accordance with provincial guidelines, standards, and procedures. It is further indicated that where avoidance is not possible, the county shall protect the long-term viability of existing or planned industrial, manufacturing, or other major facilities that are vulnerable to encroachment by ensuring that the planning and development of proposed adjacent sensitive land uses is only permitted if additional adverse effects to the proposed sensitive land uses are minimized and mitigated, and potential impacts to industrial, manufacturing, or other major facilities are minimized and mitigated in accordance with provincial guidelines, standards, and procedures. Also worth noting is two recent official plan amendments that have been approved by the province. The first amendment is referred to as official plan amendment number 120, which is the county growth forecasts. This amendment updated Wellington County's growth forecasts. The amendment allocated growth to the Township of Wellington North, including Mount Forest and Arthur. And I know the amendment identified that there's more land within the urban areas of the township than is needed for development to 2051. Official plan amendment number 123 speaks to future development lands. And this amendment implemented recommendations of the county's land need assessment and growth management work. The amendment ensured that suitable lands are available to accommodate forecasted growth to 2051. Some of the future development lands, and this was approximately 81 hectares or 200 acres, was redesignated to residential in Mount Forest and Arthur to meet this need. I note that lands that were deemed to be excess and weren't needed were left as future development. So the Wellington North Growth Management Plan was also recently updated by the township, and I'm going to refer you to strategic direction number 2. I'll read that out. The further development of any designated future lands in Mount Forest and Arthur should be directed by a comprehensive planning exercise which considers community design, transportation, parks and trails, servicing, stormwater management, housing types, commercial needs, and other matters. It is anticipated that the township will undertake a secondary planning exercise to guide the development of future development lands once servicing has been rationalized and the township and county are satisfied that there is a need for additional community area lands, which is residential or commercial. Late last year, the township also updated the Arthur servicing technical update. And this report reviewed water and wastewater needs and infrastructure improvements. Following my presentation, township staff and Triton Engineering will provide a brief presentation with some more details on the Arthur technical servicing update. Next. So the township and county have commissioned peer reviews of some of the studies that were submitted in support of the applications. A brief review of the peer reviews is provided in the public meeting report, and the peer review comments have also been included in the council agenda package for tonight's meeting. The peer reviews have identified outstanding matters and include comments for the applicants to address. I also want to recognize that Monteith Brown, who's our peer review for urban design and parks, will be providing some additional information here and their comments following my presentation. So the applications were circulated to commenting agencies and departments. The comments received have been summarized in the planning report and have been included in the council agenda. The agencies have identified outstanding matters that the applicant will need to address. One comment of note here tonight is that the Upper Grand District School Board has indicated that 5 to 6 acres of land is needed for a future elementary school site in the development. So this concludes my planning portion of the public meeting. Next, I'm going to call up Monteith Brown, who is our peer review consultant, and they will be providing an overview of their peer review comments. And following them, Tammy Stevenson from the township will be introducing Triton Engineering, who will be providing some comments on service. Thank you.
Chris. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Anand Desai. I'm a principal planner with Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. I'll be speaking to the parks and recreation component of the application. So we can go to the next slide, please. And following my presentation will be Jay McGuffin speaking to the subdivision design review. So within the application, the applicant has proposed a total of 3.6 hectares of parkland configured across 3 park blocks. That results in about 6.5% of the total land area, an amount that exceeds what is mandated under the Planning Act's planning dedications. An additional 2.6 hectares is proposed to be preserved as a protected natural environment area along a creek corridor. It is important to note that that is not part of the parkland dedication conveyance. Next slide, please. So relative to the parks in the proposed development, it's our opinion that the scale of the development is appropriate for the township to require park for park purposes as opposed to taking cash in lieu, which the Planning Act would allow. So the land is acceptable in our opinion. The provision of park blocks on both the east and west sides of the applicant's site is also appropriate. We feel that any park proposed within the setback zone for the industrial use should be situated centrally within the residential area, away from any kind of impact of land uses. And if that is not viable, then the parks should consider mitigation measures such as berms to reduce any kind of impact or effect to the areas. Park blocks 62 and 63, as identified in the site plan, should be combined, in our opinion, to form a single park block to consolidate activities on the east side of Eliza Street. And where possible, parks should be adjacent to schools, natural heritage lands, and/or stormwater management ponds, so that we can facilitate any kind of synergies between those types of green spaces. Next slide, please. From an amenity perspective, the township is guided by its 2018 Parks Recreation Master Plan. That was informed by public input at the time that it was developed. And where we look at the master plan in relation to this application, we want to note that the scale and location of parks and overall development across the township really does play a role in influencing the types of amenities needed to serve growth. So within the application, the park blocks that are being proposed would meet the definition of neighborhood level parks. And we assume that based on 866 proposed housing units, assuming 2.6 persons per unit, that could yield a population around 2,250 persons. We also note that the land that we're on today, the Arthur Fairgrounds Park, is about roughly 500 meters south of the subject site, and provides a number of higher order fields, both indoor and outdoor. And so those types of amenities that we see here today are appropriate for a community park here. Some of those higher order amenities are not necessarily what we would expect to see in a neighborhood level park. Next slide, please. From a playground perspective, however, we do believe that those are obviously amenities that one would want to be able to walk to and walk to with young children safely. And so as such, we would see them provided on either side of Eliza Street to meet the 500-meter target established in the township's master plan. That's about a 5 to 7 minute walk. In terms of outdoor sports courts for basketball, tennis, and/or pickleball, those may be considered for the proposed parks. The courts should be designed to accommodate casual use and require any kind of off-street parking or washrooms. Those are things that would not be provided in a neighborhood park setting. From a sports fields perspective, those types of fields for younger age divisions, not necessarily older ages or adults. Those are typical in more community parks. Within the neighborhood parks, we would see a small or junior sized soccer field or open space area. And if the township required any of those larger types of sports fields, those would be required most likely in other lands or outside of the development area. In terms of other amenities that one would find typically in a park, walking paths, sun shelters, seating areas, community gardens, those may be appropriate in neighborhood park settings. Next slide, please. So with that, I will pass the floor to Jay McGuffin.
Thanks, Anand. Can everybody hear me? Is this up high enough? Jay McGuffin, Monty's Brown Planning Consultants.
Very well.
How's that?
There you go.
Good evening. So I'm here to speak to the subdivision design elements. My area of practice is land use planning and urban design. So broke down the comments on the peer review into sections for digestion for the meeting this evening. So if I could go to next slide, please. So the first element I'll speak to is sort of the design element of the land use compatibility and how we address the land use compatibility, or we would look to address it. As was mentioned earlier, there were a number of impact assessments that had been provided as part of the application. So there was air, odor, and noise. All of those impact assessments had recommendations for mitigation, and there are design approaches that can be brought into effect in terms of how to address that mitigation. A class 2 designation, as was identified in the plan, requires a 100-meter buffer And there were noise berms proposed that ranged in height from 2.5 meters to 6.5 meters in height. 6.5 meters is an extremely tall berm. To give context, you're talking about a berm that's 20 feet high. With noise walls perched on top of some of the berms to create a protected acoustical environment and prevent dust exposure into the adjacent areas. It does not appear from looking at the design that consideration was given to the horizontal requirements of berms of that height. On a typical 3-to-1 slope, you would be looking at 3 meters in each direction for every meter of height. So that would be in excess of 39 meters of base width for a 6.5 meter high berm. It wasn't clear in terms of looking at the design how those berms were actually going to be able to fit on the lots that they were being proposed on, and how those berms were going to be owned in the future. And again, further to the comments that Mr. Desai made, the recommendation to relocate the parklands outside of the constrained areas so that they're not compounded by the berms and they're not subjected to any of the potential nuisances associated with industrial activities. There are other transitional land uses that can be considered within that 100-meter setback. Next slide, please. Next, we looked at vehicular connectivity. So there was 13 new public streets in total being proposed within the subdivision. Consideration should be given to extension of those public streets to the adjacent lands. So we're not designing streets to focus into an island. At some point in time over the next 50 to 100 years, we may give consideration to growth beyond the boundary that is existing, and we want to be able to have vehicular connectivity into those adjacent areas. Also an identification of intersection safety and reviewing the traffic impact study. We didn't see anything with respect to the intersection at Macaulay and Eliza that does not intersect at a 90-degree angle. From a design perspective, we would propose to have that looked at for a realignment to bring that in at a 90-degree angle onto Eliza. And there was one cul-de-sac proposed. Our recommendation would be to not provide the cul-de-sac unless it was necessary. It does not appear to be necessary. That cul-de-sac could be turned into a crescent road to provide for water looping and vehicular pedestrian access and ease of connectivity. Next slide, please. Oop. I think we got out of order. Can I jump to the next one? Next slide, please. Oh, did I have some slides cut off? Okay. I had a bunch more. I'll just speak to them. Maybe we'll leave it on the plan though. Not sure how well it's going to present for the majority of the group here this evening. Pedestrian connectivity was another area of discussion. There's currently no existing sidewalks in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. The closest sidewalk we identified was 400 meters to the south on Eliza Street. The developers recommended they were proposing sidewalks on every side of the streets internal to the development. Our recommendation in a community like Arthur would be to work with the municipality in terms of, is that a reality? What is from an efficiency perspective and a land use efficiency perspective, is a sidewalk required on each side of the street in the community? Certainly if it was a major urban center, that's what we would look at. Typically in a rural community, we wouldn't necessarily look at sidewalks on every side of every street because it does have construction costs and maintenance implications as well. But we would recommend providing sidewalk on both sides of Eliza Street along the frontages of the development so that they can ultimately tie into the existing sidewalk network that's within the community. Next one is community gateway. So the subject lands are poised at the northern gateway into the community. To reinforce Eliza Street's role as a primary gateway, rear lotting should be prohibited along Eliza Street and replaced with double frontage housing or other urban design approaches that address architecturally the Eliza Street streetscape to create a pedestrian environment and create a welcoming entrance into the community. And we'd also recommend the relocation of the medium density housing toward the higher order streets, in particular, the Eliza Street frontage as well. Comments in relation to general layout. So proper planning of school and infrastructure blocks supports population growth and fosters complete community and functional communities. The draft plan currently omits designated lands for new sites, school sites, despite requests from the local school board. And further to my colleagues' submissions, the idea of the co-location of public park and school lands typically allows for a reduced land area requirement for a public school, with the synergies created by the co-location of the public park and the shared use experience that can be created there. And again, combining municipal infrastructure facilities, so wells, stormwater ponds, and things of this nature, reducing the number of blocks that are created from a land efficiency perspective and a maintenance efficiency perspective, so that we're not scattering those facilities all over, trying to bring those into place, and using the storm ponds as aesthetic features where possible as well. And lastly, just in terms of parkland design, again, consolidating the divided parkland blocks to improve efficiency. And again, consider relocating the parkland adjacent to natural heritage features that foster ecological linkages and trail connectivity opportunities. That concludes my submission.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Stevenson. I'm the Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering with the Township of Wellington North. To support future development, the Township of Wellington North undertakes a range of studies to ensure that appropriate planning and infrastructure are in place to service existing and future development lands. In 2026, the Township will be completing a transportation and mobility master plan. This study will seek public and stakeholder input to inform future planning of our roads, sidewalk, and trails for connections throughout the community. Recently, the township completed an update to the Arthur Water and Wastewater Servicing Master Plan using growth projections from the township's Growth Management Action Plan. This servicing master plan update evaluated Arthur's water supply and distribution system, wastewater collection and treatment system to assess existing conditions and identify future servicing requirements needed to support the community growth of the year to the year of 2051. The updated servicing master plan concluded that Arthur faces several servicing challenges that limit its ability to accommodate future development. The Township Consulting Engineers Triton Engineering Services Limited will provide an overview of the servicing challenges in Arthur and related to the proposed development. In conclusion, sufficient servicing capacity is not presently available to serve the proposed development and the full build-out of Arthur.
Great. Good evening, everybody. As Tammy said, my name is Dustin Lytle. I'm with Triton Engineering and I am their municipal consultant. We have a long-standing relationship with Wellington North, and we are happy to be here tonight to present the implications of this development. Next slide. So as Tammy mentioned, and as you've heard a couple times tonight, the Township of Wellington North undertook a growth management action plan, and that growth management action plan predicted the population of Arthur out to 2051. And it did it based off of just some sort of general growth targets. With the technical study that Tammy was talking about earlier, we looked at all the land within the boundary of Arthur, and then we made predictions about what would happen if all those lands developed to their full potential, based off of the densities, and the targets that the growth management action plan gave us. And so what you're looking at here on this slide now in the orange line is those growths. So if we took the amount of development land in all of Arthur and predicted what it would look like when all those lands are occupied, we get out to a population of about 12,530. Now we push that out to 2061. These years are obviously variable, but those are the projections we made. And then there's a second number there that you can see, and that's 12,779. And the reason we've got that number is it's showing based off of the new amounts that Tribute Sabera has given us at this point. So the lands that we're talking about tonight were included in that technical study. They were always contemplated because they're within the urban boundary. But they've proposed something slightly more dense than what we had originally predicted, but not that far off. We go to the next slide then. What you really need to think about though is the size of this development. There's a term that we all heard way too much of during COVID, and that was unprecedented. And this size of development is unprecedented in Arthur. Looking here at this beautiful pie chart, you can see we've got 19% of the ultimate population of 2061 is the Tribute Sabera site. So this is a significant development that needs attention as we look at its implications. Next slide. So now that we've sort of looked at the potential population of this site, we can kind of make a prediction on what it means for our servicing. And by servicing, I mean water system and the sanitary system. The water supply, so this is the water that feeds your taps, your drinking water. It comes out of groundwater source wells. And we have a certain firm capacity. And firm capacity, what you do is you assume that the highest producing well is offline. And that way you can make sure that under all scenarios, everybody in town has access to clean drinking water. And so right now the town's firm capacity is 2,255 meters cubed a day. Now recently we had identified that there might be a shortfall in the future. And so the township undertook a municipal class EA looking for more water. We found it. We've predicted that we can get up to 4,200 cubes a day out of another well. And so now, if we consider the future firm capacity, we're about 4,200. So then how does that all relate? So we're looking at today, our current maximum day demand, so all the amount of water that everybody in town uses, all the businesses use, is about 1,500 meters cubed. So that leaves us with about 740 meters cubed. Every year, the township allocates the remaining capacity under their allocation bylaw. And to date, we have 818 meters cubed allocated. So there's lift under 600 left. But in the Tribute Sabera site, they have roughly going to need about 700 meters cubed per day. So at our current sort of arrangement, there isn't enough capacity. If you hit the next slide for me. And if we look at, sorry, just to clarify there. So if we add that all up, you get 2,337. So again, we're short. If we look at what Tribute Sabera represents, it's about 47% of the current maximum day demand. Now, in the future, when that new well is online, there is capacity. But if you look at this chart, if we take all the development lands within the community, we get to about 4,286 meters cubed per day. So again, we're slightly short. That would be something that you would look at closer to, but that's beyond in 2061. Next slide. So then the next thing we look at is water storage. And so that's the spheroid water tower and your multi-leg water tower. Within those two towers, you have about 1,300 meters cubed of storage. And you calculate the amount of water storage needed based off of multiple factors, but the big one is fire flow. How much water do you need to be able to put out a big fire in town? And how much water do you need to meet, the fluctuations in maximum day demand, peak hour demand, these types of things. So currently, our amount of storage required is about 1,120 meters cubed. And then if we consider the developments that we have allocated, which I mentioned earlier, we need about 1,191 meters cubed. If we look at what the Tribute Sabera site needs, it's about 630 meters cubed. Next slide. So if we look at our total storage required, including Tribute Sabera and what has been allocated, we're almost 500 meters cubed over capacity. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Oh, I guess there's another. Yeah, so Tribute Sabera represents 35% of that storage required and 46% of the current storage available. So then moving on to how we get the water to the site. So Arthur currently has 21 kilometers of water main, over 1,300 services. Our pipe materials vary from PVC to cast iron, ductile iron. Some of the older stuff is nearing the end of its service life. This is all sort of things that were talked about in our technical study if you're interested. So if we go to the next slide, what really matters when you're talking about distribution is pressure and availability for water for fighting fires. So it's kind of hard to imagine because you think of Arthur being relatively flat, but as you head out on Eliza, it does come up. And as you go up, your water pressure goes down. So this site right now, connected to this existing system, would have a pressure between 40 and 50 PSI at ground level. So that's not even considering, you know, what the water pressure is at the top of the upstairs bathrooms and so on. So that's a little low. That's not ideal. However, in our water EA that we have basically finished, we established that in the future, it would make sense to increase the pressure in the whole town by about 10 PSI. That's great for everybody in town, and it also services these future development lands properly. So the future water system, where we no longer have the spheroid tower, we no longer have the multi-leg tower, we've got at least one new water tower, likely two as we've recommended. The pressure will be about 60 to 70 PSI, which is good. When we're looking at fire flow, similar results. Fire flow, you know, this is a very complicated calculation. Generally, the rule of thumb, you know, I see a lot is you want to have 70 liters per second at absolute minimum for a typical residential development. 100 liters a second is better. And in this case, under our existing system, you know, based off some high level assumptions on how we even get water to this site, we're looking at about 43 to 59 liters a second. So there's not enough water there for firefighting under the existing system. Again, the water municipal class A considered this and has strategically conceptually placed future water towers and systems. And under that concept, we get over 200 liters a second. So again, in that future system, we do achieve the minimums. One thing I just wanted to touch on here too is how we get the water to the site. So our water mains all end at sort of Tucker would be the closest. So they've got a long way to go to get water main up there. And then the other way around would maybe be up Wells Street, but again, Wells Street is an unopened right of way, or you would have to come across private land nearby. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we'll go on to the what I would call the hot topic in Arthur, and that's sanitary treatment. A couple of years ago, the township undertook a municipal class EA, and that municipal class EA determined that they should upgrade the wastewater treatment plant in a phased approach. Phase one upgraded the plant to 1,860 meters cubed, which has been done. It's operating. And then phase two was 2,300 meters cubed. Phase two has not been initiated, has been undertaken at this point. The current average day flow, so the amount of sewage that the existing residences are conveying to the plant right now, on average, last 3-year average is about 1,300. So that leaves you with about 500 meters cubed a day left over. Now, you would never want to set yourself up to be operating at 100% capacity, because then you would have no room for, you know, high flow events. So, you know, I'm not saying that there's 500 meters cubed available to allocate, but that's how much remains. Currently, we have allocated 155 meters cubed. So that's all the developments that have been granted the allocation, again, through that allocation bylaw. If we look at what Tribute and Sabera need, you know, again, these are high-level predictions based off of the plans that we have seen to date. We're looking at about 824 meters cubed a day in the need. So next slide. So that results in a total flow. So if we include allocated tribute, and existing, we've got 2,293. So that's pretty close to our phase 2. What that would mean is that would be over capacity and there would be nothing left over for any other development. And then just give a sense of scale here too. So Tribute Sabera represents 36% of the current and allocated flow, and 44% of the current treatment capacity. And so you think, okay, well, why don't we just increase the wastewater treatment plant capacity? Well, your wastewater has to be treated to an effluent standard, whatever quality that might be that the ministry needs, and then it's got to go somewhere. And right now it goes into Conestoga Creek. And that Conestoga Creek has a very limited capacity to accept flow, whether that be drinking water, quality water, it has a very limited capacity. And so anything beyond that phase 2, we just don't have a good solution for that at this point. There are options, you could split the flow and send it further downstream with lots of pumping. You could, I don't know, some land application partially, there is options, but they're all costly and they're challenging. Next slide. So let's say that we can get the treatment. How do we get the sewage to the treatment plant? So looking at the existing system, the nearest available service, viable service, I should say, is 450 meters away. It's across unopened right-of-ways, they're private lands. And the reason I sort of use the word viable is because there's another existing sanitary sewer on Tucker and Eliza. However, the downstream sewers of that are not designed for this size of area, and so they can't take it. And then beyond that, they go to a sewage pumping station. And as Curtis mentioned earlier, there's going to be a sewage pumping station within this site. I think it was Curtis. Anyway, and so pumping to pump is really inefficient. It's not good use of ratepayers' money, especially in a smaller community like this. And then, as I'd said, the sewers can't take it anyway. So we really need to get that sewage to that manhole that is just up onto a Wells Street there. Next slide. Next slide. So moving on to stormwater management, pretty standard stuff in this situation. It's got to comply with ministry guidelines, GRCA requirements. Ultimately this stormwater is going to discharge into that creek there that you see on the screen. A full assessment of that creek would need to be undertaken to make sure that we're not going to be causing washouts, erosion issues, or downstream flooding of any private property. The other thing that you always have to be cognizant of with these developments is groundwater recharge. So just a quick sort of summary of what that is. If you think about this site right now, it's an open field. Raindrops fall in the field, they go into the ground, they go down to the groundwater table. When you build a subdivision on top of it, you've got houses, you've got roads, you've got sidewalks, you've got all these impervious area. So the water doesn't make it into the ground. And so now you're starting to dissipate or decrease the amount of water that's in your underground aquifers. And so to mitigate that, you collect your rainwater, whether it be through roofs, or you treat it through the stormwater management facility, whatever the case is, and then you put it back into the ground somewhere else. So you've got to recharge that rainwater into the ground. So that's something that we'll want to make sure happens in this case. Next slide. And then traffic, there was some good discussion on that earlier. We basically had all the same findings. As Tammy mentioned, the township is going to be undertaking a transportation mobility master plan. It's going to be imperative that this development consider that. And the future road layout of that, definitely will need to consider all the things that have been talked about: sight lines, separation distance from other intersections. It's important to note that Eliza is technically a county road through there and is considered an arterial. So you really want to limit the number of intersections that you have onto that, because you run into complications with conflict. And then in the same breath, we definitely want to promote pedestrian use. We don't want to have a development that's a little island out there and there's no way for people to get back into town safely as pedestrians. So these are all things that will definitely have to be considered through the master plan. And the other thing that's sometimes gets missed in these communities is the other uses like ATVs and snowmobiles. So even in this site, the snowmobile trail goes right through there. Is that something that the township council is going to want to maintain or provide accommodations for? Next slide. So that's all I've got. Sort of in summary, you know, we've looked at the potential growth. We've looked at our shortfalls that relates to supply. And then we've looked at our potential shortfalls as it relates to storage, water distribution, treatment capacity, all these things. And so, you know, it will be important for the township council to consider this development because it is the trigger for a lot of things that will need to happen as the growth in Wellington North and Arthur particularly moves ahead. Okay, thank you.
So this concludes staff's presentation for information on the proposed applications. We note for the public in attendance that no decision is being made tonight on the applications. So now the applicant will be called up and they'll be providing a presentation on the applications, and they're here with their team to answer any questions council or the public may have. And then finally, there will be an opportunity still to come for the public in attendance to provide any comments or ask any questions that they may have. So, thank you.
Might be the only one who needs to lower the mic tonight. But thank you, Mayor, members of council, and members of the public, as well as staff who've come out tonight. And thank you to staff for arranging this special council meeting to discuss our development. My name is Rochelle Larocque. I'm a registered professional planner and partner with the Biglieri Group. We're here tonight on behalf of our client Tribute Sorbera Group. With me tonight as well is our entire consulting team. We have Susan Zucchero, who is representative of Tribute Communities, Ian Rule from Geoprocess Research and Associates, who is our environmental consultant on the file, Paige Turchette from SCS Consulting, who is our civil engineer, Stephen O'Brien from DLW Engineering, who is also a civil engineer on the project, Aaron Wignall from Crozier Consultants, who is a traffic engineer on the project, Mandy Chan from HGC Noise and Vibration, who is our noise engineer on the project, Ibrahim Syed from Alliance Technical Group, the air quality engineer, and Robert McQuillan, also the Biglieri Group, who is an urban planner. As Curtis has reviewed, we have applied for an official plan amendment to change the designation on the property from future development to residential, as well as a zoning amendment to put the property into a zoning category, as well as open space and parks. And the whole proposal is to allow for a draft plan of subdivision for residential purposes. Next slide, please. So through this presentation, it's structured to provide the context of the site location within Arthur. I'll bring you through our initial submission design, as well as our proposed amendments to this design. And then I'll present information at a high level from the detailed studies that were submitted in support of the application. At the end of the presentation, as I've mentioned, our entire consulting team is here, so we will be able to provide answers to any of the technical questions that you may have. Next slide, please. So to provide context of where it is, as we've already covered multiple times through this presentation, the property is within the urban boundary of Arthur. It's highlighted in red. It's located at the northern tip of Arthur. To the south of the property is the downtown core of Arthur along Highway 6, Smith Street, which provides connections to Mount Forest and further to the north of Owen Sound, as well as Fergus and Guelph to the south. Wellington Road 109 provides connections along an east-west corridor, east to Orangeville, and west to Palmerston. The Arthur Arena, where we are now, is located to the south of the property, as well as the baseball diamond, swimming pool, and curling club are also within this block. St. Mark's Catholic School is located to the south on Tucker Street, and Arthur Public School is located further to the south. The West Luther Trail, which I recognize has just been upgraded, is located in very close proximity to the property. And the Wellington Public Library is located within the downtown area. Next slide, please. To provide more of a detailed context on our property, there are two separate properties located on the east and west side of Eliza Street. The total size is 55.34 hectares. That's both of the sites combined, which is about 136 acres. The eastern parcel is 38.16 hectares and the west side is 17.18 hectares. The net developable area on these two properties is about 26 hectares. Frontage on Eliza along the eastern property is about 637 meters, while the frontage on Eliza for the western parcel is 452 meters and 595 meters frontage on Macaulay. The western property was previously subject to applications for consent and rezoning, which allowed for a single detached dwelling to be located on that northern tip of the triangle, which is now gone. The eastern portion has frontage along Eliza, whereas the western property has frontage along Eliza as well as Macaulay and Wells Street, although Macaulay and Wells are currently unopened. Next slide, please. In March 2025, the applications for official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision were submitted to the township and county. Prior to this submission, our consulting team worked for approximately a year preparing the background studies, preparing the concept plan as prepared and shown on the slide. The original plan is shown proposed 815 to 866 units, represented a mix of single detached, semi-detached townhouses, as well as parklands, stormwater management blocks, natural heritage corridor, and a block for a future municipal water tower. This was the first submission, and we recognize that there would likely be amendments made to this plan as a result of comments that we received back from both the public as well as the township, county, and their peer reviewers. A applicant-led public open house was held on June 19th in the Arthur Arena to provide information to residents, and I'm happy to see a number of familiar faces in the crowd tonight who are also at that meeting. Approximately 40 members of the public attended and provided us a range of comments as well as engaged to find out more about the application. Some of the comments and questions that we received were with respect to water quality, ability to accommodate students at existing schools, need for commercial space within the development to provide and create a walkable community, affordability, traffic, and integration into Arthur as a whole to continue to maintain the small town feel. Comments from the first submission from the township, county staff, as well as their consultants and other agencies included the need for a public elementary school site, removal of the water tower block, request for further compatibility measures to be incorporated into this design to reflect the existing employment as well as future employment uses to the south, as well as servicing water and sanitary capacity issues, traffic issues, including the realignment of Macaulay Street at Eliza. Next slide, please. So this is a proposed development plan that we have revised based on comments that have been received. Residential units fronting on Macaulay have been replaced with public parks, as well as a commercial block to provide a buffer to the industrial lands to the south. The township and the county have both requested a 100-meter setback to all employment lands, including those that are undeveloped. Although there's no justification in any of the D-series guidelines or any of the information that we have reviewed, this setback has been provided as requested. Per the comments of the Upper Grand District School Board, an elementary school has been included along Eliza Street at the internal collector road, Street F. It will be attached to a public park, which will increase the playground and amenity area for the neighborhood. The water tower block has been removed. The intersection of Macaulay Street at Eliza Street has been realigned to provide a 90-degree intersection. And the modifications as a result resulted in a loss of approximately 100 units, but it still plans on maintaining the mix of single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwellings. The plan continues to provide a parkland rate of greater than 6% of the total area. And as we continue to respond to the comments from council, from staff, as well as the public, we assume that there will continue to be changes to this plan. Next slide, please. So to get into the more detailed studies that were completed, a natural heritage study and an environmental impact study, or EIS, was completed in support of this application to identify any natural heritage features on the property, investigate the presence of any species at risk, and identify any mitigation measures required. No species at risk were identified as part of the on-site investigations. The existing channel that runs through the site from the north on the western parcel and then through almost the middle of the eastern parcel was reviewed. A portion of this channel will be rechannelized as well as put into a block within the development. Currently, the farmers are plowing up to the edge of that channel, and as a result, we'll be putting a buffer in place to create better protections for that channel. As a result, the naturalization cover of this channel will be approximately an area of 4.959 hectares, whereas the existing channel is currently 0.97 hectares of protected area. So we will be significantly increasing the protections for that channel to create a naturalized area. Next slide, please. Coming into this application, we were very aware that one of the key items that we needed to review were the servicing limitations within Arthur and the lack of services currently at this property. As outlined within the Arthur Water and Wastewater Technical Study Update dated November 2025, the overall wastewater solution for Arthur is an expansion and is currently under review. The existing Arthur wastewater treatment plant has some residual capacity, along with the ability to expand the existing wastewater holding ponds. Ongoing discussions with the township are in progress to determine overall solutions to this issue. In terms of the required internal services to service the proposed development, an internal sanitary pumping station located on the east of Eliza is required, and the proposed sanitary sewers along Macaulay Street and Wells Street will be required to connect to the existing sanitary sewer system within Wells Street. Next slide, please. With respect to the water system, the new development in Arthur is proposed to be serviced by the proposed new well and elevated water reservoirs. One new tower is proposed to be located at Macaulay Street and Wells Street, and one north of the existing wastewater holding ponds. The subject lands have been accounted for as future development when considering source capacity, storage, and water distribution requirements as outlined in the Arthur Water and Wastewater Technical Study Update, dated again November 2025. The proposed development will utilize the proposed well, new well, and elevated water reservoir, new Tower 1, via proposed water mains along Eliza Street, Macaulay Street, and Wells Street. Next slide, please. For the stormwater system, stormwater drainage from the proposed development will outlet to the existing tributary which runs through the subject lands. Stormwater runoff from the proposed development will be provided with quality, quantity, and erosion and volume control by 2 proposed stormwater ponds. The proposed stormwater management ponds will be designed in accordance with the Grand River Conservation Authority, Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and Township of Wellington North engineering criteria. Next slide, please. The subdivision is designed to be comprised wholly of municipally owned roads once constructed, meaning no condominium roads are proposed. 3 new connections to Eliza Street are proposed, 2 on the eastern parcel and 1 on the western parcel. 1 new connection to Macaulay Street is proposed along the western block. A TIS, or traffic impact study, was completed to examine the impact of the proposed development on all of the local road network within Arthur. The current traffic levels were examined, as well as the projected traffic levels based on full build out of the subdivision. All intersections examined will continue to operate at a good or higher level of service. As part of the development, Macaulay will be extended to our proposed entrance. The future extension of Macaulay, as well as Wells, and then Wells to Domville, will be extended at the pleasure of the township when it deems appropriate. We understand now that the township is undertaking a transportation master plan to examine the transportation needs for the entire community. Given the time that our consulting team has taken to study the traffic levels in Arthur and their level of expertise, we continue to look forward to working with the township and their consultants to provide information regarding our traffic projections, as well as justification for our proposed access points. Next slide, please. A noise and compatibility study and air quality study were completed to investigate noise, compatibility, and air quality for the existing industrial uses to the south, particularly the Clark Brothers Contracting and the future Teeswater Concrete Plant. There are additional lands along the south side of Macaulay that are zoned and designated employment. However, there's a holding provision in place that doesn't allow their development until such time as servicing is in place. On the east side of Eliza Street, the lands to the south are also zoned and designated for employment use. However, there is a site-specific zone on them, which allows them to only be used for the wastewater holding ponds. So as part of the ongoing consultation with the township and the county, we have been requested to provide additional information regarding the mitigation to these potential uses, these potential employment uses on the south side of Macaulay. This is currently being undertaken by our team, and we're relying upon the permitted uses within the zoning bylaw to dictate which types of uses could be allowed. Although the township and county staff have required a 100-meter setback, which we have provided, we have included within this 100-meter setback the park and commercial land uses, which will provide that buffer to the employment uses to the south, and will provide a buffer to the residential to the north. As I've stated before, that 100-meter setback isn't based on the D series guidelines, but we have provided that setback. And with respect to the need for inclusion of berms, by changing the design to eliminate those residential uses and push them back further within the site, there's no longer any need for the berms that were identified early. Next slide, please. In addition to the noise report, air quality was also considered with respect to the neighboring land uses. The rings on the map are shown to identify a 20-meter buffer, which is the blue line, 70-meter buffer, which is pink, 300-meter, which is green, 1,000-meter, which is blue, and 1,500-meter, which is yellow. Within these buffer areas, land uses which have existing or applied for environmental compliance approvals were reviewed for air quality, as well as examining the agricultural land uses within those rings in accordance with the minimum distance separation calculation and guidelines. Both the noise and air quality reports reviewed the D series guidelines to provide guidance for appropriate setbacks. Our consulting team, as I mentioned previously, continues to work with the township and the county, as well as their peer review team, to provide updated information for both of these studies. However, we feel that the proposed design appropriately has regard for and mitigates against impacts from the neighboring existing uses. Next slide, please. The subject lands are currently designated as future development within the county's official plan, and it's identified that the land will not be required to accommodate growth until the year 2051. As part of our submission, a land needs assessment was completed to look at when these lands would be needed and the appropriate type of land use. Given the changes to provincial documents and provincial guidance regarding growth needs, we are of the opinion, based on the analysis from the province and based on our review, that these lands will be needed prior to 2036 to meet the demand of growth in Arthur. In addition to reviewing the need for these lands for residential purposes, we also examined whether or not these lands would be needed for employment uses. Based on our review and based on the Township of Wellington North Community Growth Plan and the Growth Management Action Plan, it was demonstrated that there would be an excess of 70 hectares of employment lands to 2051. The land needs has been reviewed and has identified that these lands would be needed for residential purposes prior to 2051. Next slide, please. So based on the studies and the reports that were completed, the application for official plan amendment was made to redesignate these lands from future development to residential to allow for a mix of single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwellings. The amendment will also be required to redesignate the land at the corner of Macaulay and Eliza to reflect the proposed commercial use, which we have now incorporated into the development plan. Next slide, please. Amendment for the zoning to the zoning bylaw has been made to implement the proposed changes within the official plan. The site-specific provisions have been included to reflect modified provisions to reflect the dwelling types that we've proposed. The parks and stormwater management facilities will be put into an appropriate public use category. The commercial zone for the commercial block will be required to permit local level services that will serve just the immediate community. The intent of this block is not to become highway commercial or servicing a larger area. It's identified that there will be need for local services in this area. And it's proposed that the school block will be provided with a holding zone and provisions that would allow it to be used for residential purposes should the Upper Grand District School Board determine that a school is no longer required on that site. Next slide, please. So as I said, our entire consulting team is available for questions, as am I. Thank you for your time. And that concludes my presentation.
In the agenda, I think we have a number of pieces of correspondence. I counted to be like 14. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
No, there has not been.
Okay. With regard to the zoning bylaw, anyone wishing to be notified of decisions will be considered at a future regular council meeting. Persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And having said that, I'll open the floor for any questions, comments from the public. If you wish to speak to this application, you're welcome to do so.
I'll start it off.
Come on up.
Oh, I gotta talk in front.
Yeah, we need to
Mentioned that before.
need to have the mic so that people watching can hear. Yeah, if you could just for your name and your.
My name is Joe Walsh. I'm a business owner in town as well as a resident in town for 60 years. I know I'm old. Got a whole bunch of questions, but the main one was, we stood here, I'm gonna say 7 years ago in this same hall when we were talking about development in Wellington Township, and they were saying that the county didn't want to expand, they wanted to move up. How come this development has no apartments? Or is it because it's a private? Or did the county go a different direction now and they don't care about going up, it's more expanding? I'm not sure who to address that to.
So I'll maybe start, see if there's others, so.
Can I sit down now?
Unless you have more questions after that.
Let somebody else.
So first of all, in terms of the event you're talking about, yes, we did put some suggest that we need a policy to encourage more density as opposed to less density. And but I would we're here tonight because the landowner has made an application. This is their proposal. Certainly it's higher density than many of the neighborhoods in our current community, but does not at this stage includes any apartment blocks. And if they would like to speak to whether their desire or lack thereof to include them, that would be great. But just we set the policy framework. Property owners have the right to make an application to do whatever they wish.
I'm just gonna sit in the front row after this, so it's a shorter walk, although it does help me get my steps in. So to respond to your question, why no apartment buildings? That's a comment that we can take back. Typically in smaller communities, it takes longer for something like an apartment building to be needed, to be constructed. Given the location of the site, although it's walkable to some amenities, it's not necessarily the ideal location for something like an apartment building. You'd want that closer to downtown, where people could walk to various uses, are in the heart or close to commercial, close to community uses, which mean that they may not need a car or they may not need two cars. They can take advantage of the Wellington, is it the on-demand service for transit to get between communities? So typically the location doesn't encourage apartment buildings, but we can take that back and discuss it with our consulting team. But it is something that we can explore. I can't guarantee that it will be included, but that's a point taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from the crowd?
Oh, I'm Jen McDougall and I live on McCord Street, and I don't usually attend these, so I don't know if this is an appropriate question to ask, but I'm just wondering what the status is of the cachet lands that are in between McCord Street, like that boundary of the town, and where the tribute lands begin. I haven't heard anything in a while and I don't know, are those still planned? Are those accounted for in the capacities that were mentioned earlier?
So the lands that you're referring to, owned by Cachet and others. They had made an application previously to convert them from industrial to residential. That didn't happen. And currently we have no other applications pending on that property. So at this stage, it's still designated as industrial.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah, come on up, please.
My name is Ruben Jonker. I'm just wondering, so I noticed in the application that they want a lot coverage difference of 20%. And I'm just wondering why such a high change in lot coverage? And like any other part, I guess, based off of that is, what is the proposed square footage of the house is going to be?
So this kind of ties in to previous comments about this is a denser community than has historically been constructed within Arthur. In order to get the size of house on the property, there need to be some reductions in the overall landscape coverage area of the property. So it's to allow a larger house on a smaller lot, to provide people looking to purchase and get into the market for a single detached lot. It may be at a lower price point than having a large lot that can meet that coverage. With respect to the final square footage of the houses, that I don't have that information. We're still a bit away from what the houses will look like ultimately. Our clients are builders, so they do build homes in other communities. So you can go on their website and see the types of houses that they do construct. But the ultimate design of house form, house sizes, layouts, that's not something that's been ultimately decided at this point in the process. We need to be a little bit further down.
Other questions, comments?
So my name is Will Grobler. I'm pretty new to the community and I'm just curious. It's an uncomfortable question to ask, but who's paying for the upgrade to the sanitary, the water, the stuff? Is it the taxpayers or is it the person or community that's building these new subdivisions?
That sounds like a simple question. It doesn't have a simple answer. So in terms of the upgrades necessary to service the existing community, which are a number of those things are needed for that. That's intended to be paid for by the existing residents or the existing development, the existing community.
The taxpayers.
Yes. And in terms of new growth to the community, we levy development charges. The intent of those development charges is to pay for system-wide things like water tower expansions, sewage treatment expansions, collection and distribution system expansions. But the costs for the services within the development, like putting in the water mains, sewer lines, some pumping station, as proposed in this case, would be the sole responsibility of the developer. Yep.
Pick the wrong spots, say, let's ask a question.
So Tim McIntosh, local resident. I'm just wondering about what is the timeline for the new water towers? I feel like this is maybe something I should know, but also don't. Is there an answer to that, or is it TBD?
We don't have a set date at this stage.
Okay, perfect.
But some of this is related to how quickly development occurs as well, and
Sure.
we have other limitations such as wastewater treatment capacity.
Right.
That is restricting the speed of development right now.
Okay.
So exactly how this rolls out, we don't know the exact dates at this stage, but did we make an estimate in terms of timing?
It's not a specific date for the new water tower, but we predicted that if growth happened at the rate that we had shown, 2051 was when there would be 2 new water towers. So timeline between then and now could fluctuate.
Sure. Okay, so 25 years, give or take. Perfect.
Other questions, comments? Don't be shy. Okay, I'll maybe open it up to any questions or comments from council, and if somebody has something after, we'll allow you to have an opportunity to add it. Any questions or comments from council?
I don't have any right now. Thank you.
Councilor Rankin?
Thank you. I was just wondering as well about the lot coverage being 60%. I'm just wondering if that lot coverage is reduced back to the 40% that's in the bylaw, the residents would be smaller, they'd be more affordable, and they might entice more people to come to the area.
Any other questions, comments, Councilor Dart?
So I do have some concerns with what's proposed. I may not be routing. Sorry about that. So I do have concerns about the proposed and permitted setbacks. It looks like where the developer's looking for reductions in almost everything to build. And anybody that knows me knows that I don't support variance on all sides and lot coverage, because I don't believe that that's minor in nature. So I would suggest from my perspective that the developer would look at coming a little bit closer to what we actually in the state.
Any other questions, comments?
I think I'm loud enough. I think. Can you hear me at the back? Steve? I guess I have concerns with the amendments or the asks for the amendments. We have bylaw in place for a reason, so that our community can grow the way we want it to, and with the space that people need for their own housing and their family. So I have a big issue with that as well. to echo what, Councillor Burke has said. And I have a really hard time trying to wrap my head around who is going to buy these places. If we don't use any of our employment lands, because there will be no jobs for them to go to around here. Currently, right now, I don't believe, a lot of our employers, not to sound bad, but, I don't think people could afford the houses that I think you guys are permitting or wanting to build. So I have an issue with that as well. We need housing for people that live here. We need employment land so that people can work here. And that goes hand in hand with employers needing employees and housing that needs to go with that as well.
Any other consideration?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Lennox. I don't like the variances as well, and I don't know if anybody audited the council meeting from last night. The topic of landscaped area was brought up then, and a couple of us decided, Council Burke and myself made a comment at the meeting that we may be willing to go down 40% for landscape rather than the 50%, but we can't support anything lower than that. And I'm wondering, the majority of the units that you're going to build are single residences. And as Councilor McCabe said, for people to come in and buy it, for workers in the area, a larger house like that isn't what they're looking for. They can't afford it. They need smaller houses. If the houses are multiple units and they're built according to the bylaw, with maybe a bit smaller, but again, I feel it would be far more affordable to most people in our area.
Any other questions or comments? I guess one of the questions or concerns that I have around this development, and we've talked about it a little bit through the presentations today, is our ability to provide the necessary services to support this development through water and the wastewater side in particular, and the amount of investment and infrastructure it's going to require to allow that to happen at a pace before 2051. The growth that we have planned for and anticipated in our community growth plan and the county official plan really were geared towards an orderly development that would allow us to grow at a measured pace and be able to provide the necessary infrastructure and services to support that. I think this unfortunately is jumping ahead of that. And I have grave concerns about the community's ability to absorb that rate of growth, looking particularly on the infrastructure side of things. I share some of my colleagues' concerns with regard to the amount of variances being requested from the zoning perspective. And certainly I think there's a lot more work needs to be done with regard to this project before it can move forward. So I'll go across the table and see if there's any further comments at this point from council.
I'm all right for now, thank you.
Anybody from the public who wishes to make any further comment? Yeah, move to the front now, please.
My name is Al Rollins. I live on Donville Street. From the diagram that we saw, the two large areas, it's all basically residential. There's nothing else there but houses and maybe a school, but that's it. But that's potentially going to house several thousand, maybe 3,000 people, something like that. Does the township or the village have any land other than those two parcels that would accommodate, say, a good-sized grocery store, for example? When you put that many more people in the town, I think we need a little bit more than the little food land downtown.
Trying to think who best to. Darren or Chris, maybe you would help with that?
Thank you, Mayor Lennox. So that goes back to a comment that you made about the ability of the township to absorb development like this. It's not just building the infrastructure on the development lands. It's having the community evolve to be able to accommodate that growth. Yeah, there's other vacant development lands in the township, and yeah, it's important to consider orderly growth in the township. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Any further comments from council? I would just add, I'm hearing that you've talked about it a little bit today. That you reminded me of it, and that is things like this facility here. If we were to go from the current 2,500 to 3,000 people that we have today to 12,000 people, I don't think this facility and other recreation facilities are going to be adequate to meet the need. And so there's a lot of things like that that need to be considered as well when you consider this kind of space and growth in the community. If there's nothing further from council, well, that wraps up our meeting today. Thank you all for coming and participating. And moving to adjourn today's meeting. There's lots more that has to happen with this application before we get to this. Well, so that I have a recommendation that the public meeting is January 13th, 2026, be adjourned at 8:36 p.m. Moved by Councilor Burke, seconded by Councilor Rankin. All those in favor? Right, carried. Thanks very much. The meeting is adjourned.